Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob Burnett, and with me, as always,
Hello, I'm Brad Bickerton.
this is a podcast about modern fatherhood and how it blends with business leadership. On today's episode, we're going to walk you through some changes on the pod because we're going into season two. Also, we're going to have our very first interview with Steve Lepper. He's the VP of Finance at FOND Bone Broth, an experienced entrepreneur and a father of two. Stay tuned to hear his insights on fatherhood, business, and everything in between. And as always, we'll finish up with our personal dad wins and fails for the week, so make sure you stick around to the end. So, first and foremost, we want to introduce everyone to a slightly new format to the show. In season one, it was mostly about me. It was about pregnancy and birth and my journey through the last few months of pregnancy and the first few weeks of fatherhood. Now we're going to try to mature and broaden and make sure that we're providing value to everybody. So in season two, it's going to be more than just Brad and I. It's going to be interviewing more dads in leadership roles. We have interviews ranging from multi-time startup founders who've appeared on Shark Tank to large corporate CEOs working for financial institutions, and also a bunch of high-functioning business leaders and even a former NFL player. So we're really excited for what we're going to bring you. Stay tuned. And if you have any comments or thoughts about the show, please let us know. There's comments on YouTube and in where you get your podcasts, and you can always email us at daddyopodcast@gmail.com. Our hope is that season two through the end of the year will have 40 or more episodes and at least 20 interviews, but we'll see how this goes. So to start us off, Brad, how are you and Theo doing? How's business? What's going on in your life?
Thank you so much, Rob. It's really exciting to be able to take an idea that you and I had and then turn it into, wow, there's a plan for it. And we're going to keep doing this. We're committed to doing this. And we have enough fans that we know that say, do not stop. And so I just want to just say that everything you just said is super exciting. And I'm learning a ton from the interviews we've already banked. And I can't wait to do a lot more. So what's going on here at Casa de Bickerton? Well, I think last week you and I were discussing at the end of season one that survive the day. And this week has not been survive the day. This week has been thrive. And honestly, it was something that I was mentioning to you and we riffed off of in this podcast that really helped me change my framing. And it's this old story of you either have a priority or none, right? The word priority was coined 300 years before the word priorities. And so this week, I really, really focused on my task list was my priority, and I didn't let things come in the way. And along the way, I was better and nicer to Sarah Beth. I spent more time and put Theo down more times. I exercised more times, and I made it not just to my physical therapist, but I did my physical therapy work. So I am at the end of this week on fire. I am happy. I'm feeling finally a little ahead of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, world's a big, crazy place and we'll see what happens with next week. But this week, I'm feeling really good and accomplished at the end of the week, despite the fact that on the business side, this week, I both had a company launch and a company shut down. And so I had both the bitter and the sweet in both of those. And we could talk about it more. But the fun thing is the company that launched quite literally launched a satellite into space. And I got to sit and watch. And if you've ever seen a satellite launch, a rocket launch, it's kind of cool. When somebody's texting you saying, "See that screenshot on the right? That's what we built." That was a particularly amazing part of just the business coaching world. On the Theodore side, I really dig that a lot of times in the morning he chooses to crawl over to this room and hang out with me and just gets to see dad at work and participate in it. So that's all been really, really good. And the last thing I'll say for my update is something Sarah Beth and I try to practice. Comes out of a book called Blue Zones, and blue zones are the places where people tend to live to 100 or more. And this book kind of does some thin slicing on how people do that. And one of the methods is people do what the Japanese called Hari Hachi Bun. And I'm saying that wrong, and I'm going to do it wrong, but effectively it means eat until you're 80% full. And we really try to practice that on how much exercise we do, how many social things we do, what we're doing with Theo. And I really felt like that was the win of the week is we always restrain. We could have had a little more social time, a little more extra, and we just restrained ourselves from it. And here we are on Friday, and we both still have energy in life. So that's the update in Casa de Bickerton. But thank you for listening in on that. Rob, what is happening on the other side of the pond? How is sunny, glorious London, Oxford? How is Arthur? Give us some updates.
Yeah, I feel like my update is somewhat the opposite of yours. So I feel like I am coming crashing back down to earth.
Oh,
I am I knew a baby was a lot of time, and I'm now coming kind of face to face with the reality of how much of my day is no longer available to me to do work and be quote unquote productive outside the home. And I'm having to figure out and readjust how to do that. So while your priorities, you feel like you're knocking it off, I feel like my to-do list is just growing and I'm not getting any of it done. That's not entirely true. I actually had some really productive moments, but I'm coming to grips with the fact that there are 3 or 4 hours every day that I used to spend thinking, writing, being productive, working on side projects that I just don't have anymore. And that is I'm sure some of it will come back, but it also means I have to figure out how to be more efficient, more productive, and probably take some things off of my plate. I'm always a kind of person who likes to tinker. We're doing this podcast. I've got a full-time job. I also have a couple of other side projects that I'm working on that are really
of course you
fun
do.
that I like. And I'm training for a bike race. So like, all of it is it's just too hard. But on the fun and more specific side, things are going actually with Arthur really well. He's growing well. We're learning more about him. It's getting to this place where he's starting to interact a little bit. He's threatening a smile. He certainly can like look at things now and like observe them, whereas before he was just kind of like out in the world. One small thing, actually, I got to save this for the dad win. That was too good,
Ooh,
actually. But I
yeah.
think the one anecdote for the week is I've gone and ranted and raved in season no just raved not ranted just raved about NCT our parenting class that we went to in season 1, and they do at about 6 weeks. So this last week they do a check-in where everyone comes and meets for 2 hours and they bring their babies. So you hung out with this 5 other couples. There were 6 of us total for weeks as we were preparing for birth, and now we all come back with our little ones. And it was so much fun to go
Mm,
sit in a circle for 2 hours and chat with everybody, because I've actually got a ton of friends who are pregnant, have babies, things like that. But to be with a group of like 5 other sets of parents where they all gave birth within days, most of them, of us.
sure.
So they are at the exact same moment in their parenthood journey that we are, is so nice, because even though things have gone pretty well for us, you'll have someone else saying like, "Oh yeah, like those sleepless nights are tough," or getting to look at, we were worried about Arthur's size, but then you look at other babies, you go, oh, okay, no, he's normal, or actually he's a little bit big, all of that good stuff. And so that was really refreshing. And it was a good reminder. Again, I think I've been a big advocate on this podcast about getting out there, being social, doing all that good stuff. And it was just a further reminder that, the number of anxieties that Laura and I had that were kind of quelled by just seeing these other parents who we knew, we were comfortable with, and we're kind of at our very moment, right? It's not like, oh yeah, even you, Brad, you're a couple of months, you're what, 6, 7 months ahead of me. You
Yep,
could be like, oh yeah, that I remember that phase. It'll be fine. They're like, yeah, but you're not in it right
yep,
now,
for sure.
and it's nice.
Yeah, and I've just loved watching too, your story arc from baby through this is fine, I got this to this is exhausting, how's it going? And I just love that we get to record your journey. Because for me, you're right. I don't really remember month 2, if I'm totally honest. I mean, I also don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So uh, but yeah, it's just great to be around people who are going exactly through what you're going through. And I am more than a little jealous because we did not find a click at all in our prenatal class. It was thank you for the information. Have a good life. Uh, so well done on that.
Yeah, and I think that you asked me about my Whoop score. So like this is now where I'm solidly in the yellow now, like constantly, because I'm
Yeah.
having to work later. You get those late nights, that stress creeps in. I'm not leaving the bedroom. So, I while Laura is being a saint and taking on a lot of the nighttime responsibilities, feeding, changing, I'm still getting woken up a couple times a night. So definitely getting some reduced sleep now. And then the final thing we're working on right now is kind of navigating 2 different healthcare systems. So Arthur's about due for vaccinations, and we want to make sure he gets those. But we're traveling to the US right around when he
Oh,
needs to get his first set of vaccines because we're going next week. And so we've got to kind of call the UK people and the US people and be like, all right, listen, you guys are all going to have slightly different opinions on when he should get his doses, but we need everyone to work together here. And it's kind of hard because like we're traveling like almost literally on the day that he's supposed to get him. So it's like if we want to get him in the UK beforehand, they're like, no, he's too young. It's like he's 4 days too young. He was born 4 days late. Like if we just had a C-section a week earlier, he would have been old enough. Like he's robust, he's fine. And then when you get to the US, they're like, well, he's actually too young still for us. So, you need to go the next week. We're like, well, we're moving, we're traveling. It just keeps going round and round. So navigating that system's been interesting, but we're figuring it out. The final thing I'll say on this front is we had a doctor appointment yesterday, and we had called that practice and they had said, no, you can't get the vaccines early. And then the doctor looked at him and said, oh, he looks great. Yeah, let me see if I can get him in for the vaccines. So it's often like you'll call the nurse and they'll be very good and they'll follow the rules. But then the doctor will like see the baby and be like, oh, yeah, he looks good enough. Well, I can bend the rules. Like, let me see if I can get him in next week. So we're waiting to see if that'll happen.
Before we wrap up this part, just the thing that I'm learning probably the most in fatherhood is advocacy. And I'm not good at self-advocacy, but advocacy for Sarah Beth or Arthur or Theo is so much easier, including like looking at rules like when you get this or what the bureaucrat, the checklist person says, looking those as guidelines and then asking myself, like, do I really need to follow these guidelines or do I need to push to try and, get and see if the doc will let me do stuff. So that's great.
Very good. Anything else on your plate before we head over to our interview?
I'm really excited. I'm excited to hear what the audience thinks of the interview, and I'm excited that we're doing it. So, yeah, nothing else.
All right. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to have our interview with Steve. All right. Today on the pod, we've got Steve Lepper. Steve, welcome to the pod. Brad, why don't you take us away with our rapid fire questions? Let's get to know Steve a little bit, and then we can dive deeper from there.
Yeah, Steve, just treat these like yeses and nos or ones and twos, just to help get the audience get to know you better, who you are, why you're a dad, well, why you're on the Daddy-O podcast. But we'll begin with this. Start with some rapid fire questions. Simple answers. How many kids?
2 kids, 2 girls. Sydney
Ages?
and Megan. Sydney's 6, Megan's 3.
6 and 3. In work, what is your current title and role?
I'm the VP of Finance at FOND Bone Broth.
Thank you. And how many companies have you been involved in at a leadership level? Call it 3. Would you say in your career you're more of a startup founder, medium but growing company person, or big company exec?
Startup founder / founder adjacent / entrepreneur adjacent.
And last, have you ever listened to the podcast before?
I have.
Yeah.
I think I'm one of your first 10 fans and like it and love listening to it. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you so much. We're really enjoying it. Thanks for being here. Well, those are the rapid fire questions. Not too difficult to talk about there, but I'll leave it to Rob to just get into the meat of this interview, start asking questions, and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, Steve. Well, thanks for coming. Obviously, you and I know each other a little bit. We got to meet each other and known each other a little bit over the years. But why don't you just give the audience like a kind of 2-minute overview of who you are, what you're doing right now. What does your life look like?
Yeah. So Rob, you and I met in Vail, Colorado, which is also where Brad and I met. And we've since relocated back to Michigan. I live outside of Grand Rapids in a town called Rockford. My wife and I are both originally from Michigan, went to school here, met independently in Colorado, had a couple kids, and decided, Vail's one of the most expensive places on earth. Babies are expensive. Things kids want to do are expensive. We should go somewhere where it's less expensive and be closer to family. So been here a year and a half. Love it. As I mentioned earlier, work for FOND Bone Broth. I originally started with them in a consulting capacity just around financial operations. And Elisa, the founder, reached out to me a couple of years ago and asked if I was interested in coming on full time. I was interested, said yes, and been with them ever since. Great company, built to be fully remote. We make the best bone broth on earth, both chicken and beef bone broth, and incredibly happy where I am and who I work with.
That's awesome. And give us a little quick background on the company. Obviously, amazing products. How many people are there? Are you all remote? You obviously moved while you were working there.
Yes, so fully remote team. I think our full-time headcount is 11. Based out of San Antonio, that's where it started at the San Antonio Farmers Market down there, and eventually she wanted to bring it to the world. I guess it was founded in 2015, and so now you can buy it anywhere in the US. Typically through our website is where we get about 60% of our business. You can find us on Amazon, and then we're in about 700 retail stores now, Sprouts and HEB being the big names. And we're currently looking to get across the line deals with Whole Foods and Costco, who everyone's aware of, and increase our door
Congrats.
count. Yeah, thanks.
And if you're willing to share, I know this is mostly about you, but what does your partner do?
Partner being Erin,
Your wife.
my wife. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Sorry, I
she-
use the term partner a lot because, it just seems easier that way.
Yeah, just making sure we're speaking the same language. She works at the Lemon Holton Breast Center in Grand Rapids, working with breast cancer survivors.
That's awesome. And what was she doing when you all were in Vail?
Similar. So she worked at the Shaw Cancer Center up there. She ran the gym Fit for Survival program. So people that have been diagnosed with different types of cancers, working with them on exercise routines, diets, things they can do to make their lives better.
Very cool. So I think kind of the first meaty question I want to get into right now is, so obviously you guys were living kind of pre and during pandemic time in a resort town in the mountains, and then you decided to uproot the family, kind of go back home to a place that's more affordable, more family friendly. How did you, both as a partnership and a marriage, and also you personally in your career, how did you think about making that change? And what were you looking for in your kind of work-life balance? Were you hoping to always work remote? Were you hoping to kind of maybe find a job that you could commute to? That's a lot of question stacking. We can dive into it, but that's kind of what I want to dive into.
We're both guilty of that
world.
Rob.
Yeah, no problem. And I think those are all great questions, and happy to dive in. So you talk about pandemic time. I start with the birth of Megan. She was born March 31st, 2020. So
Ooh.
like second week
Whoa.
of the world ending of the pandemic, when
Were you,
if you
I gotta dive into that for a second. Were you able to be there? Were you able to both be in the room? What was that like?
I was, and barely, it feels like. So we had our first daughter, Sydney, was born in Vail. Great experience. Same OB. My wife loved her. With Megan, pandemic hit, things were happening, and Erin was 38 or 39 weeks pregnant. We just went in for the regular checkup, and Dr. Bernstein said, she's like, hey, you're close enough. As it is right now, nobody's allowed in the delivery room besides one person. That can be you, no family, no friends. That might be going away. I think you're ready. We should have this baby now. So we essentially said, let's do it. Get in there. And the hospital was similar to how I would imagine almost like a war zone hospital. It was barricades and can't come in here and be unmasked up in different face shields. And ultimately, I was allowed to be in there, and delivery was great and smooth. And we've got wonderful, happy baby and no problems. But at the time, it was scary. I mean, we had no idea what was happening.
That is wild. Actually, this is a funny story. About probably a week or two before you were in that very same hospital, I was in that hospital because my dad was in Vail and I were skiing together, and he got hit by somebody and broke a couple ribs and punctured a lung. And so probably about 2 weeks before when you were in there, because it was when you could still go in without a mask, but it was kind of empty and everything shut down right afterward. And that's a great facility. So I imagine that's pretty wild. And you're lucky that you were able to be there, because I know one of Laura, my wife's biggest fears was not being able to have me in the room with her when she was giving birth. And she looks back at the pandemic time going, thank God we didn't have to go through it then. Because that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. And everyone has their own unique perspective on things. I was going to say I had a unique perspective on it, but same hospital as our older daughter was born, and just totally different reactions to everything. Instead of, hey, we're here and nurturing and let's do tests and we want to help you out and teach you this, it was very much like, hey, get this baby and get out of here. Like, go home and lock yourself inside forever because we don't know what's going to happen. It was two very different experiences.
Well, I know I cut you off. We dove into that, but so you were talking about kind of, all right, so your daughter's born.
Yes.
It's 2 weeks into the pandemic. Take us from there.
Had baby. Both of us got extended maternity and paternity leave we didn't expect because that's what happened in the pandemic. So upside of that was it was great. I got to spend a lot more time at home, was there for everything. The flip side that was strange was Megan as a baby had much less socialization from the beginning. Like our family didn't even get to meet her until, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months until after she was born. And we'd spent basically the whole time, the four of us in our place or outside of our place. And you remember what it was like. It was, hey, you can see people, but only outside and stay 15 yards away from everyone and try not to share any air and wipe down groceries. And just having a newborn was different there. But after a while, when things got back to normal, she did too. And she's great and totally adjusted. It seems like most other kids that we come across that were born around her, same thing. Some of them seem, I don't know, to be a little behind socially, but for the most part, they seem to be totally normal, like any other kid.
So how long was it before you all kind of like got to, I guess, got to go out with the newborn? Was it months?
I don't remember, is the honest
That's
answer.
fair.
I was thinking about it earlier, kind of preparing for this podcast. The first time we actually left and went anywhere, she was born at the end of March. It was in October, and travel had kind of started to come back, but it was still very restricted, and hotels had opened up, and we were in Vail in the mountains, and I had to get out and leave, and we booked a hotel room in Grand Junction on the western slope of Colorado, so we could go somewhere that was warmer than Vail was, and went there and took the kid, and were apprehensive about things and got a bunch of takeout, but it was fine. It was awesome.
Let's talk a little bit more on the business side of it, and then maybe also go into what second baby was like, because that's, Rob and I, as we've been starting this, we're talking about as he and I are coming into being fathers for the first time, one child. But on the business side, and Steve, you've talked to me about this before. You've got some really interesting thoughts on leadership, and they come out of your coaching career. And I was just, I know I'm kind of, bringing that up from nowhere for you right now, but just what do you think about leadership? How did you learn it in soccer and coaching? How does it apply to business? And then I'll tail it into how does that affect fatherhood? But just give me some of your words of wisdom on leadership.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them words of wisdom, but I'm happy to share my thoughts. Yeah, so a bit of a soccer background, played in college. When I was done, got into coaching, ran a youth soccer club down in Boulder County, coached at the youth level, coached at the high school level, won a state championship, coached at semi-pro level, so spent a lot of time with high-level athletes of different ages. And leadership is a broad and,
Yeah,
I don't know, sometimes silly category that everyone wants to say they are, and we're all David Goggins and can do this and are the strongest and best and can inspire others. But my leadership style is kind of a silly thing to talk about. I guess I'll bring it around to parenthood first.
sure.
And kind of how that's changed. One of three brothers and a very testosterone-filled house of animals growing up. We were all athletes and loud and crazy. And, college for me was soccer and sports and parties and testosterone and kind of the person I was. And having two girls now, that's changed a little bit. And I'd say one of the biggest changes from a father perspective is empathy being the broad category, but really more just, hey, slowing down and realizing sometimes I don't know what's going on and what the problems are. And that started when they were kids. Just, hey, I'd try to solve things right away because look, I know I can do this, and realize that didn't work, and realizing then when I would actually take the time to listen or observe what's going on or get that feedback that, hey, I can learn a lot more and be a better dad for my kids that way. And I'd say that's one of the major changes I've made in terms of my leadership philosophy, leadership style. Is I'm a lot less, hey, yeah, I've got the answers to this. Just go do this. Listen to me, shut up and do it. And it's more like, okay, I should listen because I can learn a lot here and actually put myself in the shoes of a 6-month-old or 3-year-old or 6-year-old and be able to just be like, okay, I don't have all the answers, and what's bothering them might be something I can learn from and actually listen and help them and be a better dad and have a better relationship with them.
I know that Rob and I often talk about observation skills as the fundamental for leadership. And that's kind of what you were talking there too. And then another piece that we have as guys is we have fix it mentality. Something's
Oh,
there,
yeah.
I'm in, I'm fixing it. Girls will teach you you're wrong on that, I guess.
They
um,
teach me I'm wrong about a lot of things.
yeah, well, just keep telling us what they are. We'll ask you in the end what a dad fail is in your personal life. But a piece that I was kind of a nugget I was looking for from you is you were talking about players and their emotions versus their reactions. You remember telling me this some years ago that
The,
you can't control your emotions, but you can control your reactions.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
So that's very much a coaching philosophy that you can apply to raising kids and business is starting with the soccer analogy. When you're on the field, there's you, 10 other players on your team, 11 players you're playing against, and then you've got referees and all sorts of things that impact what's going on during the game. And so much of that is out of your control. You can't control your teammates. You can't control the refs. You can't control the weather or wind or ball or bounce and all those things, but you can control your emotions. You can control your effort, your reaction to things. And, it's easy to control happy reactions, but whenever there's adversity or things aren't going wrong during a game, do you flip out and yell at the ref, yell at your teammates, negative body language, slump shoulders, or is it, hey, cool, chin back, chin up, shoulders back, head up, no big deal, let it roll off us and control that
mm,
emotion and that reaction. If you're able to do that, that can become contagious with your teammates and infectious with them, and look, that builds upon each other, and the team's going to have better success because of that in a soccer playing sense. And obviously, if you take that over to professional world, business world, same ideas. There's so many things that go on, whatever your role is, that are out of your control, whether it's people on your team or vendors or partners or someone letting you down. And you can always control your reaction to that. If you are in a leadership position, CEO or leading a team, that a lot of people are going to feed off your reactions. And hey, if you're negative and quick to get at people or yell or be angry or flip out over the smallest things, so that's going to become kind of the way the team operates. And could argue that that's not a successful way to run a company and have positive outcomes. Or if you can deep breath, be measured in your response, be understanding that people might not be happy with you, you might not be happy with them, but treat people as adults and be honest in your candor and conversation, but do so with kind of an open mind and open heart and understand where they're coming from. That I've at least experienced you can have a lot better outcomes that way too.
so now having done that from soccer to business really makes a lot of sense how those two flow in leadership. But with a teething 1 year old or a temper tantrum 2 year old or I just don't want to do it 4 year old, does this apply, or is this one of those, nope, this works in adult life and this does not work in dad life? Like how does it translate?
It's from a personal point of view, it's harder in a dad life because you can try to control your emotions and be measured as much as possible, and sometimes just uh, they're not listening, or they choose not to listen, or they continue doing something that they know they shouldn't. And it's sometimes difficult to control those emotions, but Aaron and I both try to model that behavior with the girls. And they're old enough now to where they can understand what we're saying and obviously feed off our reactions verbally and non-verbally. And we make plenty of mistakes, but for the most part, we try to be pretty calm around them when things aren't going well, and try not to yell, get upset, get frustrated. And when we are, we'll leave the room. And Aaron and I both have different ways of doing that and kind of picking up for the other when they're not there. But I think our girls are picking up on that. And it's always, you're always going to compare your kids to other kids. You never want to.
Mm,
Comparison is the thief of joy, all those
yep.
things. But we have noticed our girls seem to be able to handle adversity pretty well, especially when compared to some of the other kids. No, they're not perfect. They're both emotional children that express themselves emotionally, and especially when things don't go well. But it seems to have had an impact on their lives in what I would consider to be a positive way.
Got a different topic, and then I'm going to head off to Rob for some more questions too. But so something that I learned about my friends who have children that I didn't quite understand is I'm trying to have an adult conversation, maybe in the kitchen or something, and kids hear everything. And we've got a little bit of a we're rehoming one of our dogs right now, and my friend's 6-year-old was here this weekend, and the first question he asks when I come back, just straight, he goes, "The dog died?" And like, because he didn't know what rehoming was. And we were, I thought we were out of earshot. I definitely know my friend who's 42. I know he couldn't hear me, but they hear everything. And I just wanted to and they're a sponge and they absorb it all. How does that affect your language or your word choices? Or what is it like to be at home? Because I know, Steve, to go out, have some beers, and maybe some jokes that are not safe for podcast will come out. But at home, how does that work? Just thought it'd be an interesting topic.
It is an interesting topic, and you're probably right on that part of Steve that you know.
I know I'm right.
The choice of colorful language has to be more intentional, knowing who the audience is. You're definitely right, and your friends are right that kids are sponges and they hear everything and they repeat a lot of it. So I've tried to work very hard and be intentional about not swearing around them. And for the most part, I don't. And not just swearing, but using negative language, or I'm quick to make a joke at someone else's expense sometimes, and try not to do that around them because that's probably not what we need young kids to do, and come home and get themselves in trouble. And work hard at it. Every now and then we let one slip. They haven't repeated them yet so far. We haven't had any uncomfortable
That you know of.
conversations. You're right, that I know of, but I think that would have been reported to me. The funny anecdote on that is we were, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago at my mother-in-law's house. It had been raining and it's Michigan, and both my girls love worms. So we were going on a walk at our house to try to find worms on the sidewalk and in the road. And Sydney, my 6-year-old, we see a big worm in the middle of the road, and she's the first to see it. And she looks at it and she goes, "Jesus Christ, that's a huge worm." Aaron and I were both partly mortified, just like, oh no, like, well, we know where she's heard that from if she's been upset. But at the same time, I was happy that it, wasn't more colorful language of seeing something and being shocked, because she's probably heard me say some things like that before.
Cool. Rob.
Well, yeah, I've got a good one to segue off of this, which is, so you obviously moved to Michigan for family life. It seems like that was the primary motivator as opposed to work, right?
100%.
Yeah. So how much, and do you work from home now?
Completely.
So
Yeah,
how
I
much
mean, travel. I was going to say we probably
Sure.
travel once or twice a year for senior leadership team meetings, and every now and then we'll do an on-site, but fully remote.
So how much do your girls see you work? And how do you do the work-life balance when you're working from home? Because I know I work from home as well, and I'm about to have to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I've got fortunate enough to have an office that's kind of my space that I'm sitting in right now, and doubles as a guest bedroom whenever we have guests in town. Sydney's in school, Megan's in daycare. So in the mornings, I'm up with them. If I'm working in the mornings, it's before they're awake. When they're up until they're out the door, it's no work, nothing. Just, hey, we try to do no screens, no emails, not worried about that thing. It's with them, present, breakfast, coffee, talking, what's going on today, what are we planning, and just being around with them. Most days after school, they'll come home and I'm still working. So if my office is closed, we're trying to teach them to knock. Doesn't always work. Sometimes they barge in. And rarely do I find myself at a time where interrupting is going to be a total disaster. And most of the times when it happens, it's normally cute more than anything. We'll be in a meeting and
Yeah.
Sydney or Megan will come in, "Papa, today, hey, I heard this." Like, "Oh, buddy, that's awesome. I love you. I'm in a meeting right now. Can you come in?" "Okay, bye," and leave and shut the door. I try to, as much as possible, keep the work in the room and family life outside of the room. So, hey, door closed, and when I'm going to head out there, and take a deep breath, shut the computer screen, go out and be with them and be present. That said, I often find myself interrupted. The watch will vibrate with a Slack message, or hey, an email is going to come up on my phone that I'm going to check, and I'm going to start getting into it there, and try not to do too much of that in front of them. So I'll try to get to my office and work and talk with Aaron about it. And fortunately, I've got the balance set up to where when the girls are around, very rarely do I have to be actively working. And so I can kind of chunk my day that, hey, they're home, you know, 4 o'clock, 4:35, 5:30, depending on the day and activities, and I can put a pause on it. And then they go to bed relatively early for kids their age, and we start the process at 7:15, 7:20. They're in bed by 7:45, 8 o'clock, both of them. And at that point, then it's great. If I need to work more, if it's emails, if it's work data deep dives, that I can do it after that. So
It's just
And
interesting.
with your,
Just I'll do an anecdote real quick.
Yeah.
Well, my fear personally is Theo already knows that phones are important. I mean, he wants anything that we're holding, but he sees a phone and he starts crawling for it. And it really is highlighting to Sarah Beth and I how much we use our phones, because he doesn't know what it is. He just knows it's something we do a lot with, and therefore he wants it a lot. And so I just wanted to appreciate the fact that you're actively trying not to have screen time in the morning or when you're around the girls in the afternoon. It's hard. I mean, got to check the score, got to check the times, got to check my email. And yeah, I'm the one who's going to have to be broken of my phone obsession, which I think is pretty moderate compared to most people I know, but it's not in that comparation. It's what is Theo seeing?
Absolutely. And
I
again,
think,
I should clarify, Brad, that I'm not no screens in the morning. I'm no screens around the girls in the morning. We're 5:30 when we wake up. The girls get up at 6:30. So that's for Aaron and I, it's up and coffee and chat, hey, phone and scores and what's going on, and answering text messages from people in the West Coast or mountains, and taking that. But for me, that's been helpful to get that out of my system. So hey, I've checked the news, I've checked Reddit, I know what's going on with everything, and cool, have that daily dose of that little hit that I need to get my day going. And then when the girls are up, I can do without it. So I'm not trying to do both at the same time.
And Steve, how do you work around that with the rest of your team? Like, are you intentional with saying, hey, everyone, just so you know, like I'm not going to be responding to emails during this time, or this is when I put the girls to bed, or are you working with other parents? So is that part of the work culture and chat, or is this something that you've just done and it just works?
Very much part of the work culture, which is great. The Elisa, who's the founder CEO, she just had her sixth boy, and a possible really good potential future guest if you want to have Mommy O on the Daddy O podcast.
I'd take a mom, 6 boys too. That just sounds like it sounds like I think of the grocery bill when they're all teenagers is going to be insane.
I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but I know she cares deeply about nutrition and putting good things into their kids' bodies. So I imagine that their grocery bill right now, with 8 of them in the family, 2 adults and 6 kids, all boys except Elisa, it's going to be expensive to feed them. Going back to my point, though, everyone on the senior leadership team that I mostly interact with all have kids, and we all have that built-in flexibility into our schedules and understand if someone just, hey, on Slack, look, my kid's melting down, I need to go, I'll be back in a little bit. Or, we give a lot of grace and time for others. Hey, my kid's going to be sick at home, I'm going to be a little slower responding today, I'm sorry. Or we've got dentist appointment, doctor appointment, something's going on. We all try to balance that, and we're supportive of each other, and it works out really well, especially when we have the built-in trust that everyone we're working with is really good and everyone is extremely hardworking and capable. And because nobody has work that isn't getting done or is missing out on a lot, is dragging everyone else down, it's a totally supportive culture, which I mean is incredibly healthy and frankly great to be a part of.
And do you guys do anything special? It's great to be internally facing, right? But obviously you've got clients, you've got sales to do, you've got customers. Is there anything you try to do special when you're facing outside of the company? Or do you wear it on your sleeve, or do you try to hide these things, or does it just not come up that much? If like I can't respond because my child's sick, things like that.
Great question. If it's people outside the company that we work with often, a couple examples of that would be like we outsource our entire accounting functions working with them. The main points of contact there, they understand who we are and what we do, and where, try to be ourselves and build those relationships with them. So they'll know I have girls and people have kids, and they'll be patient on that. Same with kind of the marketing agencies we work with, and we've got a broker for retail to work on shelves, and there's always understanding there of kind of who we are and what we do. A lot of the other ones, just vendors that we're buying things from where it's not personal, they don't need to know that, and it kind of seems business as usual. If anything, I'd say we probably use that to our advantage of, hey, sometimes it's a slower response time, and they don't need a response right away from us.
Cool. And then one thing I think that it might be worth digging into is obviously, you've built your life around family, made a lot of decisions around family, but also you're performing at a high level. You're working at a successful company. You're doing good things. Do you think you've made any kind of, basically, to be blunt, do you think you've made any sacrifices in your career for family? Are you performing at a less high level, or is it all complementary? Or, I think anyone, if they only ever did just work and they didn't have
Sure.
family, didn't have friends, didn't have anything, could maybe be a higher performer, but maybe not. Being balanced is nice. But is there anything you feel like you've really sacrificed on?
Short answer is no. I don't feel like I have. I don't think there have been any opportunities that I've turned down or any lack of quality of work. If anything, I think it's part of who I am and who I've always been, just being able to balance whether it's school and sports and work and girlfriends and social life and all that, just as I've grown up, that, hey, it's just a part of it and goes along with other activities I like to do and being healthy, moving, being involved in sports. And it's kind of the same thing as the girls are starting to get into extracurricular activities. Like, we're excited for them to go skiing or have soccer practice or take a golf lesson and ride around with us in a golf cart, or, hey, we had swimming last night and Erin and I both want to take her. And it's like, all right, who gets to do this? And that's just part of fitting into our day and what we like to do. So to tie it back to the professional piece, I don't think I've sacrificed anything. Maybe someone could tell me I have, and my perspective is wrong, but the story I tell myself, at least, is that's just part of who I am, and I put a lot on my plate, but I'm able to do a lot of it and prioritize the time the way I think I should.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I think that, that's what we're, I think, aiming for, right? Is to try to sacrifice as little as possible, or even better, use our experience in family and fatherhood to make us better performers in work. And I think that there's a
100%.
lot of opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
Quick,
100%.
quick aside, does Erin work from home, or is she out? And how does that affect your schedule?
She works, her role right now, they want her to be in person. Her work, her main job responsibilities, she does not have to be face to face. A lot of the work she does is with some of their patients and insurance companies and making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for expensive procedures. And a lot of that work, all of that work, does not need to be inside the hospital. However, they want her there because she can also help out in other ways whenever they need other hands in that place. So we've had a handful of snow days this year where, of course, school's canceled and it falls on days where I've got the biggest workload possible. And there's been friction
Of
there with
course.
kind of her, her superiors on the team, like, no, we need you in here. And she's going, my family needs me. My husband needs me. This is insane. I don't even need to be here for this, but they want her to be there. So she's pitched a hybrid schedule with emphasis on working remotely to them, and that's in process. Currently, she is 100%.
I can imagine that's frustrating when she doesn't feel like she needs to be.
It's more than her feeling that she doesn't need to be. She doesn't need to be there. But that's her battle to fight with her employer.
Yep, that sounds good. Well, Steve, is there any other, this has been fantastic. Any other lessons you think, as a dad, you feel like, sometimes it's hard to impart lessons or anything, but either for any advice for Brad and I as, new dads, right? We're a couple months or a couple weeks in my case into this.
Again, I don't want to speak from a spot of, hey, I'm going to give you advice and tell you what to do because I did such a great job at this. Just a lot of it is surviving and figuring it out along the way. And one thing for me is just making sure prioritizing family and the girls before everything else. And, that aligns with the work I'm doing and the time I spend. And, that doesn't always mean, hey, kids are going to come first. I'm just going to ignore work. And they understand that, look, sometimes Papa's going to be working, but that doesn't mean that's more important than you. It's just things need to be done right now. You are the most important thing. So being there and just able to be as present as in person with them as much as possible at every age has been super fulfilling and I think really important just for the relationship. They're awesome to be around. I try to be a yes person in general. Like, hey, if there's things to do, like, yes, I want to be able to say yes to golf or going out for a beer. Hey, let's take a trip. Like, I want to be able to say yes all the time. And with the girls, it's a lot of times say yes to play, or hey, they're not feeling well. Yes, of course I'm going to be there with them, and I want to be able to put them down to sleep as much as possible and be there for them in the mornings. Just spending that time is for me has been really important priority wise, and I think it would be for a lot of young dads. And I feel like I've reaped a lot of those rewards and continue to by being there for them. And as they get older,
Mm.
learning that a lot of what they like isn't what I liked, and that's okay. Erin and I were both athletes. She's probably a better athlete than I was, and early signs are girls might not be. They care
Oh,
deeply
no.
about singing and music and drama and dressing up and doing fun girl things, which isn't me or who I am at all. But I've made the choice instead of like rolling my eyes and being the hey, I'm not interested in this at all, that like, hey, this is awesome. And it's taking videos of them singing so they can watch themselves and how they look in the mirror and helping them with their different dresses. And it's just, I don't know, it's been super fun and rewarding and honestly like learning something new for me and trying to get into new things.
That's excellent.
I feel
I'll never forget. I've got a video of you doing Baby Shark. I think with Sydney, and she was maybe in a tutu, maybe 3 years old, and just so into the Baby Shark, doing her hand motions, but also watching you, do the hand motions because you learned them, and just that was a remarkable moment for me, just watching you as a father in that. Um, yeah.
yeah. One other piece of advice. Are either of you familiar with the book The Wonder Weeks?
So I actually have an app that does that.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me find the name of it here, but tell the audience
I
about
am
what
I
it
am
is.
ignorant of this, so tell me.
I haven't read it cover to cover, but it has been a very useful tool for Aaron and I that they basically break it down on its lowest level through decades and decades of research. And every week of the child's life, they'll either have like sunny days or stormy days. And there's just sometimes with both weeks that you're sitting there and you're just like, what in the world could possibly be bothering them? They're just grouchy and crying. You can't make them feel well. And then, hey, you look at Wonder Week and it's a stormy week. And if you want, you can look at it and say, yeah, at this age, children tend to, whatever, their teeth are coming in or they're making a leap in development, but it's really hard for them to deal with those emotions. So they're just going to be grouchy. It's like, gosh, that makes so much sense. And I should just be patient, realize like they're not going to be happy with anything we do this week.
Mm.
I believe it was written by a Dutch lady, like someone from the Netherlands, and backed by a lot of research. And it was actually recommended, Brad, by someone we both know, Bethany Bontrager, and she's just like,
Oh,
we use this with
Bontrager.
our girls. Unbelievable, and it was a great resource for us, especially when they were younger. And the older they get, the fewer milestones there are, and you can talk with them and help dial their emotions up and back. But for the ages your kids are, there's a lot of times you're going, what is going on with them? What is wrong with them? And sometimes just being able to look at that book, or Brad, I don't know about your app, you can look at it and be like, oh, yeah, totally, something's going on. It just eases a lot of the stress and frustration from the parent, at least it has for us.
So my best bud Mel offered it to me, and his son is 6, and we were trying to follow it at the beginning, but Theo is either just so easy or it's just kind of not there. But it's more parents than I know. They kind of say that this is way more important when they're like 1 to 2 years old, when they have a little more agency and a little more ability, and you kind of want to reason with them, and you realize, oh, there's no reasoning with a stormy week baby. It's just let it happen. So yeah, it's one of the phrases that Sarah Beth and I use is, is this a let it go moment or a let it be moment? Let it
Sure.
go is to put it down, and of course the song, and let it be is just, well, you know what? I'm gonna hold you, screaming baby. That's all I can do, and it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. Well, great, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on the show and doing this. And we wanted to finish up with some rapid fire questions. I'll let Rob ask the first one, but just know that the last rapid fire question is, please share a dad joke that either you particularly love or the girls particularly love. And the more that it's an inside joke for you guys and nobody else likes it, the bigger the groan, the better. But just starting off, Rob, why don't you ask one or two or all of the rapid fires? Oh, he's on mute.
Talking to the mute, classic. One of the ones we asked, so I'll ask you right now because I think you just answered it. Is what's one resource you love and wish you had early on or earlier in your fatherhood journey? Any others besides the Wonder Weeks?
Rapid question, not a rapid response. I have to think about that.
That's okay.
I honestly, when we talk about resources, I'll kind of go in a different direction. It'd just be help of family. Like we
Yeah.
didn't when we moved back, when Sydney was 4 something, Megan was 2 something, maybe I'm off, but just being able to have people around that can come help you is great. And a lot of that for us has just been like date nights or wanting to get away for a weekend. And we lived in Colorado. Our closest family was 1,200 miles away. So if you want to go on a date night, it's always expensive babysitters, and then you're dealing with all that. And it becomes really easy to say no to things and just like, screw it, we're not going to go out and do that. But having family close and having friends close has been massive resource for us. Less friends, more family. Having family to be able to help at times has been awesome. And wish I had that closer when we had first baby born, second baby born, but there were reasons we didn't. And happy we got through it. The other side of that that's been really cool is Aaron and I gained a lot of confidence in parenting and just kind of feel really strong and independent in the sense like, yeah, we can do this without anyone's help. It sucks, but we can do it without anyone's help, and having it now makes it so much better.
Okay, back to the rapid fire-ish questions. Just kind of more on the humor side of it, but have you ever handed a child over to somebody else just so you could stretch your back? Yeah.
More of it is, hey, I'm not going to pick this kid up because my back hurts. Like,
my back
Aaron,
hurts.
can you do this? Or, hey, shovel the driveway because my back hurts.
And then it's similar just on the humor side of it. Have you ever asked Aaron to go somewhere like the gym or hang out with your friends just so you could get some one-on-one time with the girls?
No.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But we do encourage each other often to spend time with friends. And, last night she went out and friend's birthday, met at a brewery. I put the girls down and bathed. It was wonderful. So we encourage each other to be independent and do that. But no, I don't need to encourage her to get away. So it's just me and the girls.
Just circling back for 1 second on the family front, I totally hear that. Literally today, I'm at my in-laws' house. We got here a couple of hours ago, and we passed off Arthur to. We had a bit of a rough night last night, so we passed off Arthur to his grandmother here, and both Laura and I came up and took a nap for like an hour, and it was awesome. Like totally, we're 1 month into this, and we're starting to we're in the grind, and we're like, you know what? Getting to hand off the baby for an hour is exactly what we want to do. All right, one more semi-serious question, and then we'll ask you for a dad joke. Is there anything that you or maybe like an employee has done as a parent that's kind of non-obvious to make them either a better parent or a better employee?
I need to think about that one.
You can take your time.
I am, and nothing's popping into my brain. Ask the question again, see if it triggers a good answer.
Is there anything you've seen an employee do as a parent that you kind of thought, oh man, that's great, either because that made them a better parent or it made them more effective at work?
Yeah, kind of non-specific feedback would be, I spent a lot of time with Tara. She's COO, and she's just listening to the way that she communicates with their kids that are roughly the same way as mine is awesome. Just really quick she'll give quick answers that help guide them to the answer of the question they're looking for without just giving them the answers of do this, and tried to pick up on that and become better at the way that I almost like, what is it, guided observation, or I think there's some philosophical word behind that, psychological word, but she's really good at doing that. I think just trying to pick up on those small things for the way I talk to the girls has been helpful. Very non.
That's one thing I'm trying to dig into with my team is I think I fall into the trap often of giving the answers versus asking the right questions to let them get to the answers, which might take a little bit longer, but will make them stronger and learn better in the future. And doing that for a team member or a child, I think makes a lot of sense.
And not have to come back and ask you the same question again because, hey, you can just solve it. Just empowering them to solve it on their own by, kind of that guided discovery. Exactly.
Great, Steve. Thank you so much. But to wrap this up, dad joke, your turn, your floor. You can say whatever you want, and all we can do is laugh.
You kind of teed me up with this one beforehand, and I had to check and make sure it was appropriate for the podcast. But when when Sydney was younger, just learning to talk and sing the peanut butter jelly time instead of saying peanut butter jelly. I'd say peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time, and they started to do that. And both of them get a nice little smirk whenever anyone mentions peanut butter or anything. They don't go out and say it, but they'll kind of look and laugh and smile at me, and it's one of the small joys that brings me a lot of joy in my life.
Perfect and wonderful. Well, Steve Lepper, thank you so much for sharing some of your fatherhood journey and your business journey and where they overlap and don't overlap. And there's a lot of good nuggets in today's interview, and just really want to appreciate you for taking the time and being open with us. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, everyone, welcome back to the Daddy-O podcast. And we really hope that you enjoyed that interview with Steve Lepper. He's a good friend and he's a very, very smart guy. He was a little quieter than he is out when you're having a beer with him, but that's totally fine. Thank you, Rob, for asking great questions from the audience's perspective. Really, really happy about that. But let's move on to the back end of the podcast. The thing that we hope everybody, every dad who listens to this can agree that they have made similar mistakes to us and have enjoyed similar wins to us. So, Rob, I'm just going to straight ask you, since we saw you last, not too many days ago, tell me, what are your dad wins and your dad fails?
Yeah, good question. So I got a couple good wins for the week. On a personal note, I got a haircut for the first time since a couple weeks before the birth. If you're all watching on YouTube, it might be better, might be worse. I don't know, but here's what it is, what it is. I got to take care of myself. That was great. On the dad front, two wins that were really nice. One is, so I've been a big fan of the sling, putting him right on my chest and slinging him up. Arthur's now big enough that I could put him in a slightly more robust, like Baby Bjorn kind of beefy sling, not just the kind of cloth wrap. And I've got him in there now, and I can face him forward. He's just big enough to get his head over the top. And he's just strong enough, and it just holds his head just enough in place that he could do it. So I've had so much fun these last couple of days, like walking out in the world with him, also looking out as opposed to kind of asleep on me. And that's been super fun. It just feels super cool. I feel like so in my dad element, because I find it a little tough, and this will bring me in a second to my dad fail, but I always feel like a little awkward, kind of the in public kind of singing, playing, toying. But there's something about having him on my chest, like looking out, where I can just be like, oh, this is that. Look at that bus. Look at the trees. And I can talk to him, and I find it very easy. So that was a huge win. The second win is twice now. We've done a big walk. He's fallen asleep in the stroller, and we'll take the stroller and put it in our backyard. And forgive me, I won't explain all the logistics, but essentially we've got a backyard shed that I'm in now that's kind of a backyard office room. And it's also where Laura and I have our indoor bikes where we ride. And so twice now we've had him fall asleep in the stroller, and we've left him in the stroller outside in the backyard. We're doing a little Scandinavian thing where we're having him sleep, and we'll like leave the door open. So it's a little cold, but it's fine. It's not super bad out here. And Laura and I have both gotten to ride together as he sleeps.
Wow.
So we got to do that once. We got like almost 40 minutes. And then today we did it again for almost an hour. We had to get him up because he woke up and put him back a quick feed and put him back to sleep. But we still got a whole hour together working out, which was just a huge win. Good for us in the relationship. He was sleeping like a baby, and it was awesome. My dad fail for the week is a little more serious, and it goes back to my insecurities. I let my insecurities get the better of me, and that was not good. So we were basically taking a bus into town to go to his doctor's appointment. It was early in the morning. Kind of everyone in there was kind of like on the commute. So you know that kind of feeling on the bus where like everyone's a little tired, needs their caffeine. It's kind of dead quiet in there. And we came on, and we have the kind of I had him on my chest looking out, and Laura wanted to sing him nursery rhymes and was kind of singing Wheels on the Bus to him.
Yeah.
On the bus, which was super cute and adorable. And I was just like, I feel so awkward just being loud on a bus where everyone's quiet in the morning. And I asked Laura to stop, and she didn't like that. And rightly told me off for it. And I just let my insecurities win, and I was wrong, and I shouldn't have cared at all. And I know I shouldn't have cared, but I just felt awkward and I didn't know what to do about it. So good lesson for the future that, no one cares. No one cares. I know no one cares, but sometimes our old insecurities get the better of us. Those are mine for the week.
I love that because it's something that I have felt, and I'm sure our entire audience has felt, which is the family is embarrassing me. I don't feel good about it. And do I just sit quietly and take my insecurity, or do I speak up about it? And no right or wrong answers, though clearly this was the wrong answer
No,
this
no,
time.
there was a right and wrong answer, and I got the wrong answer.
Sorry, sorry.
It
No
was
blanket
not
right and
about
wrong.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fair. Um, well, thank you for that. Yeah, so my wins and fails, got a couple. So I'll tell the fail side first because there's two of them. We got a new car, and I'm the only one who could drive it right now, and it doesn't matter. We can get into the whys of that. And the other day on Monday, I was in a hurry. I was in my head, and I took the car that we could both drive because in my mind, Sarah Beth didn't need to use it. And so I go to physical therapy in it, and then I get a call from her, and she had scheduled an appointment during that time, and that she had no car. And the only reason I used the other car is because I didn't schedule my time right, and I felt like I was in a hurry. And what I had to process on my way home as I'm going back and forth between is she mad, how mad she had to take an Uber, she was late, moved her day. All this stuff fits in the realm of inconvenience, not trouble. But I was really justifying in my head, like I can do this again. And then I just had a moment. I said, "Oh my God, I was just being selfish. I need to walk in and say, I humbly admit this was selfishness. As I was thinking about myself and I wasn't thinking about others. And if I thought about others, it would have been the easiest, maybe 2 minute process. But instead, because being selfish, I caused other people to have to go out of their way to accommodate my selfishness. So that's fail one. Fail two is an almost fail, but I think it's funny enough that people still listening in will enjoy it. So, uh, oftentimes on Tuesdays, I get Theo at 3:30, and I'll put him in the backpack, and then I will take Hobbs, the golden retriever, and we'll go for a 5K walk, 3.1 mile walk. And that was great. Everything about it was good, except for I made one little thing. I also often use a carabiner to hook the dog to the backpack so that as he pulls, he's pulling against my hip and my weight. And I've done that for years. Well, the only mistake I made was it was warmer than I expected. So I had to take off my coat. So I stop in this little underpass and I take off the backpack. You're laughing already.
I know exactly where this is going.
And I start taking off my coat, and then the dog sees a bunny. And like, if I hadn't jumped on the leash and stopped him from even running, so there's no fault, no problem. This was an almost just imagine a dog running after a bunny tied to a backpack that has an 8-month-old kid in it. And I just looked at him and went, whoa, that was almost an epic dad fail. So that's my dad almost fail. On the win side, I mentioned this in the A block, but I was actually able to keep my priority list. And the biggest thing was my ability to have it written out in front of me. And literally, my default was no to anything that wasn't on the list. And that cleared up so much time. And it was such a win. And what did I fill up that extra little bits of time, these little calls I could have taken, these little things? I ended up filling them up with Theo time, which was wonderful for me, but also a real relief on Sarah Beth. She got to spend time writing her book without fear. I got to have enough time or energy at the end of the day to truly sit with him in his exhaustion. Because at 8 months old, he wants to sleep, but he doesn't know how. And like he wants to get in my arms and have me to cuddle and kind of no, and this yo-yoing time until he's really ready to sleep. So ready to sleep that really I pick him up. He falls asleep in my arms, and all I do is walk upstairs and put him down. And I would not have had the energy for that if I'd taken those extra calls, done those if I'd gotten off my priority list. So I was really, really proud of myself for that. That was a big win for the week. And yeah, I think that's just something that I really hope that I can continue to do is write my priority list on Sunday night and kind of tell everything that's not on that list, go pound sand. We'll come back when we do. So
Love
it for me.
Congrats. I need to take some inspiration from it. Well, if you're listening and go ahead.
I was just saying, you're in such flux right now. The idea of writing a priority list and trying to get into it I mean, business is in flux, you're in flux, sleep is in flux. Right now, man, just find the wave and just stay on top of it. That's my recommendation.
Do everything I can. I hear you. So if you're a dad listening and you have a win or a fail you want to share and you're willing to let us share with us, email us at daddyopodcast@gmail.com or comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. We really appreciate it. It really means a lot to us and it really helps us out. And stay tuned for an exciting season 2. We've got a ton of great interviews. We got a lot coming your way. Hopefully you all find it as interesting as we do. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.